Welcome to You, Me, Empathy, a safe place for leading with your heart. Hey, thanks for being here. You, Me, Empathy is the official podcast of the Feely Human Collective, a collaborative mental health community designed to empower each of us to grow our capacity for empathy, vulnerability, and emotional wayfinding. Just a friendly reminder that this podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only and is not a substitute for medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. No one is just a silly boy with a feely heart. You can support the show by leaving a review in Apple Podcasts, following us on social media at Yumi Empathy and Feely Human, and joining the Feely Human Collective community at feelyhuman.co. And now your host, Known Wells.
Hello, Feely Humans. Welcome to another episode of Yumi Empathy. My name is Known Wells. This is episode 158 on optimism, authenticity, and living in your truth with Wendy Jones. Wendy and I explore optimism deeply in this episode. She created the Optimist Journal, where she explores what optimism means to her. We talk about why optimism is the backbone of resilience, how optimism can give us the energy we need to create the lives we want, and so much more. We talk about a lot on this episode. I really enjoyed it. I think you'll enjoy it too. Wendy is wonderful. Make sure to follow her on Instagram. Those links are in the show notes for this episode at feelyhuman.co/episodes. Before we get to the episode, though, I want to just wish you happy holidays. Wish you Happy New Year. We're almost there. We're almost to 2021. It feels exciting. It feels... I don't know. Maybe I'm being optimistic. This is the right intro to be optimistic about 2021. I'm going into the new year with a lot of big ideas and big passions and things that I want to achieve, and it feels good. It feels good in my heart, and I hope the same for you. Wishing you all the safety and doggo snuggles and love that you deserve. I wanted to talk a little bit about the next year, 2021, for this show and for Feely Human. This show will continue every Monday, and if you enjoy this podcast, please leave a rating and review in Apple Podcasts. I really do appreciate it. It's a free way to support me and the show, so please do that. So I will continue to do this podcast every week, and Jessica was there in the background. I'm just going to keep going because this has been a great intro so far, and I don't want her to fuck it up. I'm just kidding. But seriously, stop it. Do you want to say hello? Just say hello. Come here. Hello. I don't know if you heard that. Anyways, 2021, the podcast will continue every Monday. And we got some great episodes coming up, including, obviously Wendy's today, Kai Plant of the Feeling Weird podcast, Jason Garner, Megan Schaefer of Dismantling Normal, Azalea Lee, Nikki Eisenhower, Mark Pagan, Emily McDowell, Kate Flanders, Mina B, Lindsay Mack for round 2, Michelle Hammer, Ray Senarigi, Rabbi Steve Leader, and a bunch more that I haven't scheduled yet. So look forward to those. For Feely Human, I am sort of reconfiguring things, not reconfiguring, just taking a pause to kind of like reassess things. I know I want to create at least one new workshop. This is probably a paid workshop for this coming year. And I'd really like to, start doing some more art collaborations and get some more writing in the journal. So if you're a writer or an artist, please check out feelyhuman.co and check out the collaboration options. But for now, I'm going to focus on the podcast and start working on a new workshop, which is kind of fun. If you want to support the show by not only leaving a rating and review, which is free, but if you want to support me on an ongoing basis with $5 a month or more, you can do that at patreon.com/feelyhuman. patreon.com/feelyhuman. And again, that link is in the show notes for this episode. It's just an ongoing way to support me, and you get a bonus episode of the show every month. And then $10 and up, you get a Zoom hang where we deep dive into specific topics and other things. So check that out, patreon.com/feelyhuman. And I think that'll do it. Happy holidays. Wishing you all the best, all the empathy and love to you. I'm so grateful that you are here listening to this show. I'm grateful for you listeners. I'm grateful for Feely Humans and feelings and big hearts. And let's be optimistic about 2021. It's gonna be better. I mean, lots of work to do, lots of stuff to fix, lots of heartache, that we need to solve, but one step at a time, one human heart at a time. Okay, let's get to the episode with Wendy Jones on optimism, authenticity, and living in your truth. Welcome to You, Me, Empathy, the official podcast of the Feely Human Collective. On this show, we explore the struggles, the triumphs, the brights and the darks we face as humans trying to get by on this wondrous and overwhelming pale blue dot. The intent of You, Me, Empathy is to talk openly, without judgment, about our mental health, our neuroses, our shared anxieties and worries, to create a dialogue that is vulnerable and deeply human and empathetic, and to share that dialogue with others to inspire emotional and cognitive collaboration and insight, so we can, hand in hand, break down the stigma that make us feel shame and guilt for struggling, for feeling our feelings, for being feely humans. You, Me, Empathy is a safe, friendly space designed to inspire the beauty in each of us. Today, I am struggling for optimism in this world, in this moment, but I'm a bright, burning light of optimism to be here with storyteller, resilience coach, and creator of the Optimist Journal, Wendy Jones. Hello, Wendy.
Hey, Non, it's so great to be here with you, and I love your introduction because that pretty much sums up why I started the Optimist Journal, and that's what I'm all about. So I love the space you've created here. It's awesome.
Well, thanks for saying that. So let's dive right into it. Like, when you say that, what do you mean exactly? What does that mean?
Well, let's see, it's been about 4 years since I went through my divorce, and, things like that kind of crack you wide open. I was married for 20 years and I have 4 awesome kids. And, when you kind of hit that spot where all of a sudden you look at yourself and you go, okay, I want to know how I got here. And, I started looking back into my family and the generations and just understanding how much self-awareness, can be a gift and bring us to the present and help us understand, who we are and, why we are the way we are. And so I started just kind of wanting to uncover those stories in my family and kind of, analyzing where I was and also just looking forward. In that process, I kept hoping that I'd find a journal from people in my past, and I never did. And so I thought, well, if I could create my own, at least my kids will have something to understand, what I was feeling, and, whether they get it now or they get it later, they'll be able to look back and go, okay, here's what my mom was thinking at that point, and here's how she made this healing journey. And so, I think at a certain point in life, and I don't know, I'm 45, it seems to, the decade of the 40s can be pretty rough, for lack of a better word. And I think, we hit a point where we have a lot of coping mechanisms that maybe break down on us, or and zeroing in on that area that's, where we shift from coping to healing, and that's a big, big choice. And I kind of see where, we have to make that choice, and not everybody wants to. So, but I definitely am on that train, and wanting to teach my kids at a lot younger age about self-awareness and about the journey and about vulnerability, and how sharing our stories, empowers other people to share their own. And it's just super, super important to me. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I love that so much. Like I didn't think about it in the way of it being, because the stories from the past, it's such a romantic notion, right? Like
Yeah.
we think back and we uncover the great grandfather or the great grandmother's journals in the box in the attic, whatever. It's all dusty, and then you get some insight about your lineage, right? And that's like that can be sort of supporting truths or whatever it may be. It can be just enlightening, right?
Right.
And to create that for your kids, I didn't think of it in that way. I think that's so loving.
Well, thanks. I really believe, it's so much in parenting where you're trying to impart this wisdom, but as so much of life is, we have to be in a space of time where we can, take it in. And sometimes with parenting, you realize, well, obviously my teenagers don't have the perspective of my 40-year-old self. And so what I impart, maybe it doesn't get into them yet, but knowing that, if they hear things and see things, I think modeling is so much more important than words. But, we got to back up our action, our words with our actions. But, just knowing that they'll have that to look back on, it just, gives me, I was always a journaler before, so I have my own journals, and I just decided to turn it into a blog. So, yeah.
And we're living in a time where, opportunities to create that kind of vulnerability or those stories for people to look back on in 10, 20 years it's very fruitful, right? We have blogs, we have podcasts, we have, whatever it may be. There's so many access points.
Yeah. And, that's another part of my story is I kind of grew up as a news junkie, and always plugged into the 24-hour news cycle. I read the paper every morning, and starting, probably about 8 years ago, the 24-hour news cycle just had me burned out, and I shifted over to the podcast world, and found a lot of great podcasts like yours, or growth mindset podcast. Finding Mastery is one of my favorites, just about people who are really living that authentic life, that are looking for growth and opportunity and optimism, and I really feel like optimism is, it's the backbone of resilience, and it's how we get the energy to make, optimism is the belief that something good is coming, but, we have to have the energy to actually create that. And, the optimism is what gives us the energy to create the life that we want. So,
yeah. Yeah, I do want to dive deep into optimism, but I first am curious about, when after 20 plus years, you get divorced, after having 4 kids, you start going back and looking and trying to learn through some stories. Like, what were some of those stories that you found?
Well, I think, nobody gets out of this life game without some trauma, right? Whether that's, big T, one day something horrible happens, or just little, I kind of call it death by 1,000 cuts, small trauma that you almost don't realize is happening. And as I look back into my lineage, in my family, and in my ex-husband's family, there's so many things. We have, it's heartbreaking to say, but we have suicides, we have alcoholism, we have mental illness. And I have to say that, like, my role in all of that has definitely been as the codependent, lots, through the addiction cycles, and the shame that's created when we bury those stories, rather than, I didn't know about those things, until, we really started, or maybe I knew a little piece of it, but we didn't really discuss it. We didn't uncover it. We didn't, you kind of try to bury it, it seems like. And I think that was very much a way of the past. I mean, the past generations, they're very stoic and strong, and they're defined as, you hear about the greatest generation. And I have so much respect for the work that they put in, but I don't think there was a real value placed on, transparency and telling those stories. And I don't think they realize that when you let those stories out, that the shame that is released and the freedom that you feel, breaks my heart to think that people go through life without feeling that shame lifting from them. So, I definitely had I'm a recovering codependent. I'm a recovering people pleaser, and realizing that self-care is where we start. And when we start taking care of ourselves, we set that example, and then we, can just be such a better influence and empower people to do the same for themselves. And then that's when we can connect. That's when we get on that level where everybody is contributing and working hard for themselves, but then you find that connection that's so genuine and authentic. And I just live for that.
Well, yeah, I mean, I hear all of that and I believe it all. We don't really connect if we're not presenting our authentic selves. And our authentic self does require some of that, trudging through the muck, right?
Yeah.
Unpacking those stories, unlearning those stories, all of it.
Right. And I mean, that vulnerability, it's such a scary jumping off point. And I think a lot of people, if you've never done it, and if you don't reach that point where you just go, oh my gosh, like for me, it was, I can't live like this anymore. Like I knew something was stirring deep within me. Like my real authentic self was just begging to come out. And, I've been, in past days, I've been told, self-help was a hobby, or self-care was, oh, that's your hobby. Well, it's really just, it's a cry, I think, that every human being has. And it's a choice of whether or not we listen to it. I mean, and that's the only place where our world gets, when we make that choice, our world gets so much bigger and we have so much more opportunity. And that's where like real optimism is born. You actually see the world through a brighter light. You feel that freedom. And then you also find the humans that are on that path that want to come along with you. And it's a really beautiful place to be.
Yeah, it is. And that choice for ourselves, that choice of self-care is you telling yourself and you telling others, but mostly yourself, that you deserve to be in that place, that you deserve that attention, right? Like there's so much, I think, that we humans, and I wonder if you can relate to this, just don't believe we deserve that attention.
Oh, amen. And I definitely have fought that feeling. I mean, I used to show up in places where my authentic self would just start to come out and I would feel it. And then all of a sudden something would come in and just knock me back into my, like, go back, like you're being, you're asking for too much attention, or you start, that self-sabotage kicks in and you think, okay, that, I shouldn't want to be in this shiny, bright light that I feel right now. But really, when that's your authentic self coming out, and I would know the places where that was, whether it was in a yoga class. I'm an athlete, so it's like on the court, with my friends at the pool when I was swimming, when you're having those moments where you are shining and then feeling shame because you're shining, right? And having, whether it was in my own mind or it was having people around me that were threatened by that because they didn't feel good enough about themselves, that, you didn't feel, as a codependent, I didn't feel comfortable to be in that position. But yet that was, where my authentic self wanted to be. So now I seek those places out and I feel like, you're okay. It's okay to be seen. It's okay to be in this place and know that your conversation is as valid as anybody else's, and your story means something and can, your struggles help the world. And knowing that, it's not about me. It's just about that place in the world that, each of us is so entitled to take up. We are all entitled to take up space, and we're not stealing it from anybody else.
No, it doesn't cancel out.
Yeah.
It's not I take this space, it takes it away from someone else. That's not how it works.
Right. And I think I very much used to think that, and I wanted to push other people forward and let them shine. And I was always kind of, behind the scenes and saying, okay, what's your dream? Now, how can I help you make your dream come true? And then, I think, and I do think that helps in coaching, and I think I became very good at seeing other people's talents and seeing what they could be. And now I can use those skills. We gain these things. So sometimes it's taking the skills that we gain and just taking the positive out of them, setting the negative aside and moving forward with those skills. So I don't, that's one way I kind of reframe, how I got where I got, and not feeling sorry for myself, but just saying like, those, you gain some valuable skills, now do something good with them. So
it's hard. It's hard. So hearing you talk about like, you kind of being in your light and feeling shame and stuff, like I'd imagine I certainly relate to it, and I imagine many listeners can. There was this moment, I shared it on the podcast before. There was this moment I was playing a board game with friends, Settlers of Catan, and we were maybe 20 minutes in, and I started to like sort of open up and feel, and these are like dear friends, people I would call very close friends, right? Mm-hmm. Started to open up, and there was this moment I just shut down about 20 minutes in, and I didn't even notice it in myself. This was maybe a year ago. My wife noticed it first, and then later I had time to kind of unpack it. But what happened was I felt myself starting to be seen by the people in my life as someone who is having a joyful experience, who's being comfortable in this loving, joyful space. And my reaction to that was to shut down and say no. And, that kind of response, which is just so like, that's the stuff I'm trying to unlearn. Mm-hmm. But I wonder if I want you to like unpack a little bit of like what's going on when you feel that like wanting to kind of tamp yourself down, because I think it's such a universal human experience.
It definitely is. I can so relate to what you're saying, and I think as I've tried to unpack that on my own, because I have felt that I want to say that exact same feeling, and it used to be, like I said, part of it was feeling like I was taking up someone else's space. Yeah. And when I look back at the generations of my family, there was definitely that that message was passed down, of people, they don't want to listen to you talk for too long, or my dad was in office, and his dad used to tell him like, don't let your speech be too long. They don't want to hear what you have to say. Do you keep it short? Wow. Or I had a grandmother who was this 6 foot tall, gorgeous beauty who was so accomplished and was a World War II vet. And yet in her later years, she was always behind the camera. She always said, don't take a picture of me. I don't, and if you did, she was never looking at it. She would look away. And to me, I'm 6 feet tall and look a lot like her, I modeled even that. So I think we get told things, and these are people who, in their actions, they were never meaning to teach me that I didn't, belong or find joy in owning my space, but they had that in there, and then that gets passed down through families, And so it's not about, blaming or anything, but it's definitely about acknowledging and saying, oh, I recognize this pattern, and that, that's not, it's false. Like that's something I want to change. Like if I think about it, I always think about it and, okay, what do I want to teach my kids? And I watched my daughter the other night, who is an introvert and quite shy, but she's in drama, and she was in the school play, and it was a Zoom production. And I watched this kid light up on the screen. And I mean, it just brought me to tears, because I thought, oh my gosh, look at her. She's brave. She's being seen. She's out there. She's singing. And she comes alive. And she is so much like me, so I can see that introvert. I can see that. So I think, a lot of it has to do with what we model and what we teach. And so that always inspires me to, think about that next generation and what I want to inspire. But I think another thing is just that scarcity mindset of, why do I deserve this? And imposter syndrome kicks in. Like, somebody knows more than I do. Maybe I shouldn't open my mouth. Like, there's so many things that when you get into that spot of, or, even guilt, there are so many things because I believe so firmly in gratitude. And I look at my life and go, gosh, my life has been, even though I've had my share of, tragedy, like, my life is so blessed that even that, I would allow that to rob me of my joy. I'd think, gosh, there are other people that don't have what I have, and I'd let that make me feel guilty, rather than say, wow, whatever platform you have, whatever blessings you've been given, now I go, oh, I'm meant to use those blessings to help benefit other people, and
Yeah.
so you can get trapped in a lot of those spaces where, and it will rob you of your joy, and it's definitely not where we want to be.
Yeah, indeed. So when did you start, having the pop up saying, hey, this is not right. I actually do deserve this space. I do deserve to be in this joy. When did that come about for you?
Well, I moved to Southern California. Let's see, that was in 2013. And I think when you make a move like that, and you kind of remove yourself from your old patterns when you make a move, right? So, and that was before I was divorced. So, we moved our whole family down here, and I grew up in Fresno, and had lived there for 17 years after college. And then we moved down here, and kind of having a new routine and new opportunities, and looking, and you really get that moment of going, wow, like, this is almost a redefining moment. Like, who do I want to be? And you know how you can feel that stirring in you? Like, why am I here? Who do I want to be? And some of those questions, as I started to ask them, I think they became threatening, when you change things up. And I think, divorce is such a sad thing, and it's a tragic thing to have to go through. It's really hard on kids. But I think the bigger tragedy is, when we choose not to heal. So if you have to go through, I think at a point you realize that there's healing to be done. You can either do it together. But if you're that person that knows there's healing to be done, but maybe the other person isn't ready to do it, you have to take that journey by yourself, because it will just eat you alive. Like, it's the thing that will wake you up in the night going, like, I can't, how do I get past? You get to a point where you can't go around it. You have to go through. And I think that was, for me, that moment when I reset my patterns, and I moved down here, and it's so beautiful. It's so health conscious. I've always been an athlete, so I got to start playing volleyball again. And, the more you befriend your nervous system and get yourself into that place where you're like, wow, you start seeing the blessings, and you can't ignore it anymore.
So the decision to divorce, that was part of the equation of, like, you honoring yourself and you kind of choosing to change your life.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely started seeing patterns of codependency and understanding, like, when you start watching your daughters and everything, it's so subtle, right? I mean, we do these things. It's not like something that's just screaming out to you, but you see little things that you go, oh gosh, whether it's, I so firmly believe that we're all here to support each other, but in the end, it's our job to take care of ourselves and understand what it is that makes us happy. And when you can't do that for somebody else. So I think I started seeing my girls kind of do things that I didn't so much realize that I did, but when I would see it, I would go, oh my gosh, like, that's not I want them to have this like free existence, and I'm watching them cater to like, I hate to say it, but like a household that is a codependent household is not, it's very walking on eggshells. It's not
Yep.
it's not free. You don't know what you're walking into. You don't know what the mood's going to be. And it's very difficult. And when you want something better for your kids.
Yeah.
And, it's not, and it's something that happens so slowly over time. I was 22 when I got married, and I don't think anybody nobody gets married thinking they're going to get divorced.
Right.
And it's not that everything was bad always. It's not like, I'm such a believer in forgiveness, and I'm such a believer in people are honestly, I think most people are doing the best they can with what they have and what they know on that certain day. But, it does become in time, like if you don't want to ask the big questions, that's where, ways start to part. And, I kind of see life on those two different tracks, because self-actualization, like, it just never stops. So, if you don't want to go down that path, it's, the people that do, like, we kind of part ways, and there's really no way around it.
Yeah. First of all, I'm sorry you had to go through that experience.
Thanks.
I can't imagine going through that. You're right. Like, I've been married for 10 years, and it's not a thing on your mind, right? Like,
Right.
Divorce isn't going to happen, right?
No. And honestly, even when you go through hard times, like I was always, I truthfully, I always thought we would make it. And I always thought, I can work harder, but it's not always about working harder. It really is honoring yourself and being true to the person that you are meant to be, we're always growing into. And I think that's part of relationships, is being with someone that, like, you can grow together,
Precisely. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. You can't, like, whether they're your life partners or friends, the people in your life who see you and accept you and allow the growth to happen. And, with that growth, the discomfort and the challenge of that, like, all of that needs to happen, because you're right. Like you said, that's the human condition, is to keep growing, to keep, evolving, to keep, looking.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So tell me a little bit about optimism. Let's talk about optimism, because
Yeah.
I said at the top, I've been feeling kind of sad about the world. And yes, I have, clinical depression, and that's a piece of it. But I don't know, lately, and it could just be we're in an election year, an election season, and all of that could be a part of it. But I've just been feeling sad and a little pessimistic about the world. And I am someone, I think, is optimistic. I have like a utopian sort of lens of the world. But lately I've been struggling. So let's unpack that in a second. First, I want to, like, hear from you, like, in your mind, what does optimism mean? What is an optimist?
Well, I think first and foremost is, an optimist always believes that the best is yet to come, right? So, no matter where we are today, things are going to get better. And I think that fundamental belief is what makes a true optimist. And I do think that, I think optimism gets a bad rap sometimes because, there's blind optimism, which I don't advocate for. There's naive optimism, which to me is the kind of optimism that you're not willing to back up with hard work, or, that self-realization process that will bring along the fruits that come with, the actions that we take. And it's not just mindset. There's also, it's our actions and our discipline, and what's our process to get there and to maintain that optimism. So, I think that optimism that is based in an understanding of where you've come from and what you've learned and what you can take from that to create a better future, that's definitely the place I work from. And I am constantly reminding myself that, I've been through hard things and that I've survived and I'm here. And that concept of like staying present and going, okay, if I'm in a bad moment, like nothing lasts forever, right? The only constant is change. So if we are, I think about like those moments, like I love the water and the ocean, and I think of it like the tide, right? The tide goes out, the tide comes back in. So if I'm in a moment where I'm like, man, I am not feeling it right now, I'm not feeling really optimistic, I go, okay, let's, find that. I definitely am a big believer in a mindfulness practice. So if I'm here right now and I am okay, and this moment's going to pass, my optimism, over the long haul, my optimism has never failed me. So I definitely think it's something that a little bit that we're born with. I know that it's something we can train, which is what I help people with. And I also know that if you were, I was raised by optimistic parents. So I think when you have that mindset around, that also helps. So,
in what ways were they optimistic?
My dad is just the eternal optimist. I mean, he's a farmer, which, talk about a job that like nothing, there's so many things that are out of your control, whether, it's the weather or the prices that, are set on, like he just always would say, okay, but it'll work out, and then, he'd be up at 4 a.m. and whether he was worrying about things or not, you never really knew about it. And, he was also, ran for a lot of public offices, and whether he was down in the polls or up in the polls, he would get up and show up and tell you what he believed in and say, okay, it'll work out, and he
like
tells
the
me
Leslie Knope of dads.
Yeah. Yeah. He definitely just always believed in the process and wanted us to, be contributors to a process that was good for everyone. And, and I do think that collective optimism, when you're around that, it just teaches you, keep working and keep believing, and things do tend to work out. And like I said, I've had a lot of blessings in my life. I have a roof over my head. I have 4 healthy kids. And I've definitely, those things have all been challenged, but when you have that fundamental belief that I know how to keep working to make it better, that optimism, it sticks with you.
Yeah. So help me understand a little bit of your sort of brand of optimism and the blind or the naive optimism.
So, I definitely am a big believer in, I've called it life design at some point. I'm very, very organized with time, and I'm a big believer in kind of goal setting, vision setting, understanding what your philosophy is on life. So those are things that I can help people. I think when we align our vision with our value system, and so getting people to understand what is your value system, like what are the things that mean the most to you, and then how do you align your vision for your life with those values? Because I think we get that will buoy our spirit in a way. When those things line up, that's where we find that alignment, that when you can live in that alignment, that's just like living your truth. And it's the energy that comes from that and the optimism that will come from that is amazing. So I think a lot of people, like, when they feel stuck, say you're stuck in a job that you feel like you just have to keep this job, right? Like I need these benefits, or, they give me a company car, or whatever it is that you feel trapped by, that's when our optimism starts to decline. So looking at things like, what are the small things that I can do to slowly, maybe we can't quit our job that very day, but what are the little things we can do to start to change our routine? That even just adopting a morning routine and a mindfulness practice, and learning that like we're okay right where we are, and then letting it out from there, like things start to awaken when we boil it down to the little things. I'm a huge, advocate for just taking care of ourselves, like whether we move every day, whether we're hydrated and take care, eating healthy. And, there's so many things. I'm a big believer in music and infusing our day with things that can lift our spirit. So like all of that goes in. I call that active optimism.
Got it.
Instead of blind optimism, which is like, oh, well, it's going to work out. And then just sitting there waiting for, waiting to win the lottery or something, I mean, those things don't tend to work out for most people. So it's empowering yourself and feeling like you have the authority and that agency in your life to make the little changes that all of a sudden, as you're making those little changes, the bigger picture will start to change.
Right.
So
it goes back to like what we were talking about at the beginning, which is like you have to have or learn to develop that belief in yourself, right? And the belief in sort of finding our true selves and finding and going on that path, right? Because otherwise, we're not going to have the data to back up those decisions,
Yes. And having that data is huge. Like having, and it's not, you have to learn not to discount the little things that you have been through. I mean, I think it's easy for us to overlook the little things that we actually have survived and accomplished. And, but it is having that data that shows us like, oh, I've been here before and I can do it again. And I can even one up. I'm a little stronger than I was last time, and I can even do a little better. That data is huge. And then the things that I really fall back on when you say, believing in yourself, for me, the building blocks that I realized I was missing pretty much when I went through my divorce were confidence in myself, the courage to make change, which when I went through my divorce, that was obviously a huge decision. And that feeling that how scary that is to make a change before that you know that you really can do it. It's like that. I call it the middle place where like you have to make a change, but you don't really know how it's going to work out. And just continuing to believe in your ability to adapt and knowing like, I realized that my confidence was based so much on, I was thinking I had to have this big track record, and I have a tendency to compare myself to, Lord. I mean, I can say, well, I'm not a Supreme Court justice or an Olympic athlete, so I haven't made it yet. I think I had that in my head, and, boiling it down to going, I have the ability to adapt, and I can I can make my life into anything that I'm willing to work for. And I've always been inspired by stories of the underdog because, you see that, and it's amazing when you see the power of no matter what the human condition is. I mean, there are some stories out there that you go, wow, how did they do that? And so, to me, it's confidence, courage, and self-love. And that's the way that I break down, am I loving myself? Do I have confidence in myself in the moment? And do I have the courage to make the changes that I need to make? Because changing is scary, but it takes courage. So
it does. How do you feel your, this optimistic outlook on life and mindset and lifestyle? How do you feel like this has influenced or impacted your kids?
Oh, it's pretty amazing because the more you live in your real authentic space, I think there's a calmness that comes over you, and you really are able to be in that aligned space. And as they see it, they know slowly they have opened up. Obviously, they've been through the trauma of divorce, and it's hard. You have some that say, oh yeah, I'd like to go to a therapist and talk this out. You have others that go, heck no, I'm not going, like, and I really do believe in like meeting them where they are and finding ways. So I think just living authentically, and that has made me, it buoys my optimism, and they know what I'm about. And I think showing your kids when you're free to be who you are and you're not trying to, force a picture that maybe isn't meant to be, when you live free like that, your kids really, they see who you are.
Yeah.
And it is an awesome thing to see when they start grabbing. And like I said, watching my daughter perform the other night, my older two are both Division I college athletes, and watching the joy that they have found in their sports. I mean, they both my daughter plays beach volleyball, my son plays indoor volleyball. Watching the joy that they have found in those spaces, and the ability that, when you have something that gives you that confidence, when you're younger, it to me, that's, if I have any part of inspiring the bravery that it takes to stick your neck out there, like, I mean, that is, I would love to. It's just amazing as a parent to watch your kids, shine where they're meant to shine. But so much of parenting, I think, is just being there and showing up, and, like, even when they're little, getting down on their level and looking into their eyes and taking that time and not being rushed and staying present, even when they're, when it's not the big moments. Because now I'll say, like, I've got these older kids and it's amazing to see what they do, but when they're little and you just take that time to push them in the swing and, listen to their silly little stories that maybe you're like, oh my gosh, I've got 10 things to do. But if you just take those moments and really lock in on them, you build that relationship for later. And I mean, it really truly is life's greatest gift. There's nothing that I value more than parenting these kids. And then my fourth child is honestly my biggest learning lesson, because he's actually on the autism spectrum. And he's very high functioning and has a near-death experience as a 2-year-old. That's another part of my trauma. And he is a lesson in never giving up, because the gains this kid makes every day. I mean, he almost drowned when he was 2, and now he is a surfer, and he's out in that water every day. And surfing, like, I mean, it changed his motor skills. It brought calm to his life. And so, the things that you get to sit back and watch as a parent and just watch it unfold. I mean, I think it makes me more of an optimist. So truthfully, in parenting, I think they give you more than you give them. And it's just about being present and listening. So much of the time.
Yeah. Ain't that the truth?
Yeah.
I love the way I mean, that was also beautiful. And I love the way you describe, the really the infectiousness of, like, living in your truth, because it is, you notice it, right? You do, like, I've noticed this in friends, in people in my life, like, them grow into their sort of self-knowing, minds and bodies. It's really a beautiful thing to behold, and it is truly infectious.
It really is. And I think it's hitting that point where we know we don't have to hold back, and understanding that, like, always trusting your intention, because when you're on that path and you go, you can recognize your ego and you can see where, okay, am I getting it? Because we all have those moments, like, okay, you can get hurt. Your ego can get assaulted a little, and maybe you do rear up or you say something that you wish you hadn't, but you can recognize those moments. And so as you become more self-aware, you have less of those moments. And then you really are getting into that space where, that mindfulness practice is just amazing, because it will put you're almost always, your feet are almost always planted right where you are, and you get to take in whatever is coming in that moment, and not getting too far ahead of yourself or thinking too far behind yourself. Because while I definitely have experienced both with anxiety and depression, I love the quote that is, anxiety lies in the future and depression is in the past. And if you can just stay present, that's where we know we're going to be okay, and so I come back to that one a lot, because, you can definitely see the things that creep in, that pull us away from that space that you're talking about. That's so beautiful. And I do think sometimes it's our cell phones, it's social media, it's comparing ourselves to other people, or, those types of things. And when you learning to recognize when those are sneaking in on you, that's where, I think we get to come back to that authentic place a lot quicker than we used to. So
Yeah, I think that's true. I think even some of the, future tripping, as I like to call it, is sometimes that's even like aspirational, right? And that can
sure.
take us out of the moment and be, can cause difficulty. Like, sometimes I do myself, like that's a thing I'm trying to work on, which is just being mindful, being present, being here, because this is all I have. But then I think about and I wonder if you can relate to this. I'll be 40 in July of next year.
Okay.
And I'm getting to a point where I'm having I was an athlete for 30 years, have weird sort of physical ailments, weird hormonal things going on. And I'm also like trying to build this new business. And I'm at the stage where I'm just like, I don't think about death. I certainly don't. But I'm also like, I really want to make an impact. Like I really do. But then I ask myself, is that an ego thing? Like, can't you just be here now and just, hey, build what you can today? But it's just hard. It's just hard.
Oh, I can so empathize with absolutely every word you just said, from the hormones to the aches and pains to the wanting to make a difference, and the, that ultimate question that like looms over any of us is like, why am I here? Like
Yeah.
what do I want to do? Like if I have this one life, okay, why did you put me here? What am I supposed to impact? And I definitely think that it's easy in this space when you're trying to create and put yourself out there, and you're I mean, what you're doing is so beautiful, but it's very vulnerable. And then, you have those moments where you're like, okay, is anyone listening? Or
Sure.
is it does this matter? And, I have definitely felt those moments of feeling small and going, well, if so-and-so doesn't see it, then does it matter? Or if I'm not going to get recognized, but you know what? I always boil it back down to, if I can help one person who was having a bad day, who learned a little bit more about getting to know themselves, or living more truth, centered in their truth. Or, I talk about this generational learning, and I go, gosh, if I can connect with one 20-year-old girl that was struggling today, that maybe going to learn something 20 years before I learned it, that's when we know. I do think those small victories, when we're living in our truth, they start to add up. And I think the only time when we get pulled away from it is when we ourselves get discouraged, and then, live smaller, or feel like we have to pull back our message. And so I'm so thankful for platforms like, you're giving people, because I do think that there's so many of us out there that are trying. I think there's so many normal, run-of-the-mill people that you do not read about. And this is why I have such a hard time with mainstream media, is like, I feel like we're not hearing about the good guys. And I do think that the good stories are sometimes they're boring. Sometimes I do think it's just the people that are sitting down around the dinner table and having great discussions, or, taking your kids to practice, and, dads that go to work and come home and, help with the kids. Like, those are the boring stories that make such a difference,
Yeah.
And so, I thank you for creating this platform that allows people to tell their stories, because I do think it's so important.
Yeah, hearing you say that, and thank you for saying that, hearing you say that makes me think about the nice guys finish last thing, that we hear about, right?
Yep.
And it's funny because it's it clearly needs to change, right? And I think it is changing. I think, the mindset we can change to is there is no race, right? And what is goodness? Like, changing about, like, thinking about, like, okay, what is good, right? Good isn't winning a race. Goodness isn't being nice necessarily. Like, we can sort of broaden our scope of what goodness is, right? And looking out for it. Because I think there's a lot, you mentioned the media, there's a lot that's I don't know, shaping the way we sort of perceive what goodness is and what can be sort of positive influences on our lives. And, cultural artifice and stuff can be so can strip us of that, that
Yeah.
freedom to look for the goodness.
Absolutely. And it can be, I think there's so much coming at us all the time that even just sorting through it,
Yeah.
right? It's like when we get on that path, I mean, I know that I've had to kind of peel back the layers and go, wow, I just jumped onto this self-care growth mindset bandwagon, and things started coming in and all of a sudden I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm being bombarded with information and all I feel like is I'm just overwhelmed, right?
Yeah.
So I think learning our pace of life and knowing like the energy levels that work for us. I think some of us have, far more, like, maybe we're extroverts and we're really good at being around people all the time. And we just have this endless energy. And I mean, I am a true introvert where I absolutely love connecting one-on-one with people. But if I get myself out into a big group for a while, like I am ready to come retreat back into my home and have
Yeah.
my quiet
Same.
time. So yeah, you have to know, managing your energy is a huge thing in this day and age, I think. And the more we, going back to the self-awareness and the more we understand ourselves, and I've even started to get into, that's a whole nother conversation, but I don't know if you've looked into human design at all.
No, what is that?
Oh my gosh, it's so fascinating. So it's just this, it's not astrology. It's basically you take your name or your birth date, the time you were born, and the place you were born, and it tells you about the energy and the gates that were open when the moment that you were born. And when you read your chart, I'm telling you, I haven't read one yet that I'm like, wow, that is spot on. I did it for each of my kids. I did it for myself. And you can download this app and
Huh.
it'll give you a small picture of it, but then there's tons of books out there on it. And there's a lot of, healer, spiritual, energetic types that I've started to discover use this. And it's really fascinating how well you will understand yourself and go, oh, that's why I see things this way. And it almost gives you just an understanding and a permission, not that we should need that, but it's just feeling understood for who we are in the world. And it breaks you down into personality types. Like, I'm a projector. So that means I recognize the talents in others. Whereas like you can be a manifester and you're one of those people that is going to get out there and actually do it. Whereas, so I'm like, oh, well, that makes sense as a coach, like I actually, that's something I've always done. I've always seen, oh, she should be doing this. And that, it's like helping people in transition and saying, okay, maybe this is your next step because I see these qualities in you. And I go, oh, that makes sense to me. And so then you feel like at home with who you are. And I think that's all we're always trying, any of us is trying to feel, is like the more we know ourselves, the better we can connect with others. So
yeah, that's so true. So true. So how has your optimism been during a worldwide pandemic?
Oh man, it's been a year. That's for sure. I mean, I don't think there's any of us that don't feel it. I certainly tried to focus, and at the beginning there was a sense of relief in me, and not to say, I mean, clearly we're not wanting a pandemic or people dying and the things that we've experienced and that families have experienced, the loved ones that they've lost. I mean, it's that in itself is never anything we're looking for. But as a mom of 4 kids, when this all hit, I think I was looking at the busiest weekend that I had had in a really long time on March 13th. And in fact, I was supposed to do something. Danae and I were going to go see Anne Lamott that weekend, one of my favorite authors, and she was going to give a talk. And I was trying to figure out how to fit all of this in. And then all of a sudden, everything just stopped. I went from a weekend that I was trying to figure out how to get it all done to absolutely nothing. And
to an introvert, that's like, Cheetos.
What, isn't that amazing? I love being home. I hadn't had nights where I had all 4 of my kids around the dinner table, and we were getting those all of a sudden. Like, my daughter came home from Texas, so she was home for 5 months. I never thought I'd ever have all 4 of my kids under the same roof again, and we had 5 months of taking walks after dinner and, all eating together and not having to be in the car up and down PCH, in rush hour, trying to get people to practice and, rushing around. And so for me, for a while, that was just this huge gift and this pause of like, okay, gosh, like really looking at what really matters, like what really makes me happy, what really makes my kids happy. Do we need to be running around doing all of this stuff that we're doing? So there was a huge sigh of relief, and I enjoyed the slowdown for a while. So I would say that buoyed my optimism at the beginning. And then, as things wear on and you start to realize like, wow, I'm missing those connections. I love outdoor music. I'm missing concerts. I'm missing, and so that regular life. And then also just the economic impact to families I opened a small business during the pandemic. So, I have two partners, and I opened a training facility for basketball and volleyball. And literally we signed the lease 2 weeks before the pandemic hit.
Wow.
So it was, that was stressful. And so there are definitely, like, my heart goes out to the small business owners and people, who have lost so much. And it's all of that is really scary. So that was a tug on my optimism and trying to figure out like what is the best path forward. And in fact, I was talking with a lot of the college athletes for the last week or two about the mental health aspects of COVID and what it's, when these kids are all back on campus, and do they have, enough support to, weather the storm of like not having the connected relationships that they are used to having, and being in a bubble and having to quarantine and testing all the time. And does that raise your anxiety? There's, who do I talk to? Who do I need to distance myself from? Just all of that second guessing. I think it's been hard on everybody. So, when I go back to trying to weather this storm, because we don't know when it's going to end, right?
Yeah, right.
It always comes back to gratitude and just enjoying the simple things. And that's always been something that's come pretty naturally to me. I'm, love being home, love making coffee at home, love cooking at home. So, it's not those things. I could live like this for a while if the world could be healthy and the businesses could survive. Like, I'm actually, not missing too much. I do like to travel, but, other than like, I can definitely, I think it really does come down to finding joy in the little things, and just being thankful for your health and, doing everything you can to stay healthy. So.
Right. Yeah. When I think about what you say, and I think about like I don't know if it's the cynic in me or just like, whatever it may be, but like I struggle with the, feeling optimistic while sort of, 200,000 people have died, and, systemic racism is still a thing, and like all this stuff. And it's, I am, to talk about the personality types, I'm a helper. So I like, I want to help, and I can take that too far, but it's, and I'm also very empathetic. So I take on a lot of this like collective, grief and stuff that people are experiencing right now. And I struggle sometimes with balancing that optimism and talking about like, yeah, the small joys, the things that I can control, right? Like those things help, but I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're hitting on some pretty big topics there that like, obviously we all have collective, we have the impact that we can make as a single human. And I think when we stop believing that we have an impact, it's very hard to stay positive. So I definitely focus on all of the little things that I can do. It is that one-on-one connection, because when the big problems feel so big, I always bring it back to what can I do with the one person that's in front of me that's going to make the world a little better. It's that whole concept of leaving something better than you found it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the problems that you're talking about, I mean, when you talk about systemic racism and you talk about, people losing loved ones, and so much of it feels out of your control. It does not. I'm not here to discount those things. I just always say, what can I teach my kids to get better than we were yesterday, to get better than we were a year ago or a generation ago? That's leading by example, and just talking and telling the stories and making sure that the truth is out there, and and that we're transparent and living our lives, the best way that we know how, which is not perfect. There's none of us are perfect, but it is striving and always looking for the good, and then recognizing that sometimes we have to step back and forgive ourselves or forgive other people, and get up the next day and do it all over again. So
You're right. I do think about the one person thing. I think about that a lot when it comes to the work I do. And I thinking about that, like that one person even could just be us sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think that's an important piece of it, is like, because I know that like, I get caught in a vacuum, and I get caught in, sort of my ego leading the way, thinking about like the impact, right?
Yeah.
But I do have to remind myself that like, the work that you're doing in sort of teaching people about optimism and resilience, like this is work that's helping you too. And thereby, even if you're not like directly one-on-one coaching people, like you said, the example that you're setting is, you have 4 kids under you. Like
Yeah.
that's a generation shift right there.
Oh, that gives me chills when you say that, because that is truly, like, when you boil it down, what I am about. Like, if I can help the next generation learn things more smoothly, or even just a little bit quicker than I did, or just believe in themselves younger, that is what I want to do so much. And I just love connecting with kids and young adults that are coming up and in that space of, learning to believe in themselves, and, loving themselves, and understanding that perfectionism is not the way to go, and just learning how to be real in this world. Because honestly, I believe so much in you do not have to agree with me, and but just please bring me your real self. Like, I can transcend so much of this, the battered political spirit, and the where we are right now, with just bring me your real authentic self, and we can work from there. Like,
Yeah.
I can almost work with anybody that is not overtly trying to hurt somebody, as long as you're showing me your real self.
Yeah.
So that's
I love
super
that.
important. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It is. And like that, I mean, that period, I mean, I think back to when I was 18, 19, 20, I was a mess. I didn't, I mean, I had no idea who I was, or even like how to take a step onto that journey of figuring out who I was. But,
Right.
that's the unlearning I'm doing now. But like, I am hopeful for the future, because I've had interactions with people, college age students, and even high school age students, who are so much like worlds ahead of where I was in terms of their ability to be vulnerable and to talk about mental health, and to
Oh, yeah.
share their heart. Like, it's beautiful.
No, my friend and I were, just as we traveled together this weekend, it's my best friend from high school, and we were talking. She said, "Did anybody even use the words mental health when we were in high school?" And I mean, we didn't use those terms, and we didn't
No.
know there was a whole journey there in itself, and that people struggled, and it was all done behind closed doors, and you might have seen the repercussions of it, but you didn't know what it was, And so, yeah, I totally agree with you. These conversations I have with young people are just, I mean, talk about awesome. Like, there is really some good stuff going on out there. And I do think that for everything that we can get down about these days, like, I see some pretty awesome young people coming up and doing a lot of work younger than I did it, and just letting the things that fall in, in their day, teach them. I mean, whether, like I say, if they can find a passion, I think we can learn so much about, about ourselves and how, our place in this world, if we can find that one thing that we connect to. So
it's also a good, as you say that, I think about, there's so many different stigmas, right, that exist in the world. And one of them is like this idea that like, adults know better, which
yeah,
I just loathe with a passion. And like hearing you say that, it just like, it makes me even more hopeful, because it's like, it's just a reminder for me again, and for you listeners, that like we can learn from anyone. Doesn't matter their age or background or perspective. Like we can truly learn from anyone if we have an open heart.
so true, so true. And I think, that's so much of that is, getting your ego out of the way, and realizing that, like, I think that's another one of the gifts of the self realization journey, is like, the more you learn, you realize the less you know, and you just want to keep learning, and then you start seeing all the places you can learn from. And that's like what I said earlier. I honestly feel like parenting is I learn as much from them as about myself and the world as they learn from me, if not more. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So my wife plays sand volleyball or beach volleyball, and has for years. And I just needed to say that because she loves it.
Oh my gosh. I was out there this morning, and it is the release in my week. It is the relationships that I have with the women I play with, and the things we can talk about in between games, and just those points of connection, and then getting into your body. I will play for as long as these knees and shoulders will hold up. So, I mean, yeah. And I'm amazed, because I was out there this morning, and there's 2 courts of women playing, and I'm pretty sure all of us are between 40 and 50. And it's amazing. Like what we're doing, it's such a gift. It's to live here and be able to do it. So I wonder if I know your wife. I wonder if I've ever played with her.
I don't think so. We're in Orange County, so she
Oh,
mostly
okay.
plays in south
Yeah,
of where you're at. But
sure.
it is like I play from time to time, and it is such a, like, I played soccer for 30 years or
Okay.
whatever.
Awesome.
So there's something about it that reminds me of soccer in some ways, like,
Yeah.
space wise, but it is very, I don't know. It's a very invigorating activity. I enjoy it.
Yeah, it's so
Yeah.
fun. And I honestly think that, like, if you were an athlete and you stay an athlete, and I think that we, I always have considered it a gift, and even more so now, because I realize how connected I am to my body. And I also
Mm.
believe that, like, so much of healing comes from understanding our bodies and feeling into our nervous system, and knowing what our activation is, and, trying to calm ourselves, and, learning visualization and the things that we can do as athletes. And so much of that just translates into regular life. So I kind of think in, the game of life mentality, because so much of what I've learned in sports is translated to what I do in my life. So
Mm.
I think any sport is such a gift, that it just teaches us so much about our bodies, and it makes us, value our health more. And there's all of those things. So
Yeah, it can, certainly. It can, yeah. So how is the, you mentioned like starting a business right before the pandemic, like, are you able to like have clients and stuff right now?
yes. So, it's definitely that space of, lots of cleaning, and, people who are looking for places to train that feel safe. We are not a fitness center, so at certain points, fitness centers were shut down. And during the height of it, luckily construction wasn't shut down. So we were able to build out this, what was an empty warehouse, into a training facility. Well, basically it took us from mid-March till the end of June, and then we've been able to stay open, keeping class sizes small and just lots of cleaning. And honestly, we haven't had any trouble. We haven't had anybody contact us saying, that they were sick. None of us have been sick. And it's amazing. I do firmly believe people need to move, because I think it definitely fights that depression that is so easy right now to sink into.
Sure.
So, it's been nice to have a place where if people are interested, they can come. This isn't team sports. It's not anything that's like long-term sign up. So, it's definitely been a challenge, but it's also been a great release, and community builder, and seeing people who, giving them an opportunity to move and kids to see each other and safely and all, there's been a lot of positive to it.
So that's great. That's really great to hear. Is it all ages?
It's all ages. In fact, I play with my daughter, my 15-year-old, and actually I've played with all of my kids, but like we have an indoor volleyball class that's, adult, and adult all the way down to juniors, and we're all playing together. And there's been moms and daughters, and we're playing together. And then one weekend I wasn't able to go, and my daughter went anyway. And the next weekend I said, "Hey, do you want to go play?" And she said, "Well, are you coming?" And I said, "Yeah, I can come." And she's like, "Oh, good, because it's more fun with you." And I'm like, "Okay, that's like as good as it gets for me." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm in." So as much as I joke that my body doesn't need the hard court, like if I can play with my kid, that's incredible. So yes, it's all ages. It's called Championship Performance Advantage. It's right off the 405 at the Inglewood exit. So we even have people coming up from Orange County. And they do basketball, volleyball, mentality training, physicality training. We have all kinds of classes. So
cool.
It's really, it's right off the freeway and easy to get to. And we have awesome coaches that build kids' confidence. And then we have all the way up to people who are learning to play volleyball at, 30 or 40 years old. So,
yeah.
And we also do some classes on the beach too. So
nice.
It's all really fun. It's positive. It's, just helping people become their best and get stronger. And I love being a part of that. So
sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Well, Wendy, let's talk about empathy heroes.
Ooh.
So we always talk toward the end of the show about our empathy heroes. These are people in our lives. They could even be characters from stories we love. I'm going to go first to give you a moment to think about yours. So as of this recording, it's October 13th right now. And tomorrow, again, as of this recording, is October 14th. And October 14th is my sweet, dear Black Lab Scooby's 14th birthday. And Scooby is, sorry, Jessica, Scooby is the love of my life. He's still doing very well. He's still there mentally. He doesn't hear very well. His back legs, he can't really feel anymore, but he's still so cuddly and sweet. And gosh, if dogs don't make you feel seen and loved, when I am feeling down or feeling unanchored, like Scooby, I just hug on him and he gives me all the love. And I don't look forward to a world without Scooby, but I know that his impact will last me for the rest of my life. And he's my best bud. So Scooby's my empathy hero, probably for the millionth time on this show, but I don't care because his birthday's tomorrow. So there.
Well, that's pretty fabulous because I couldn't agree with you more. We just lost our chocolate lab.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry.
It was in August, and he went quick. He had got cancer that we didn't know about until it got real bad. And he honestly was my son, my youngest, who really honestly, like, he has a hard time making friends his age. And this dog and him, I cannot even tell you, like, the bond that they had. It was gut wrenching to lose Lucky. So the empathy that dog had for our family and for that kid in particular, for Matthew, like I will always, I'm 100% with you. Those dogs, like what they feel and what they know is amazing. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I hope you get 5 more years out of your 14-year-old dog, because going through that it's terrible. And don't think for a minute I didn't have a puppy and a week later. So Matthew's got another dog already.
There you go.
I was
That'll
like,
do it.
okay, we got to get back on the horse, because you still miss the one that you lost, but at least, he's building another relationship with another awesome dog. So
Yeah, you can do both at once.
yeah, exactly. I would say my empathy, I'll go with my, my probably, I have 3 mom friends. These mom friends of mine that have 4 kids, that feel into everybody's, what they need, when they need it. And they're that first call for, their kids. And they've been through these moments like I have, where, near death experiences, or kids who are struggling with anxiety, or, just that, the perfectionism, or the things that we as moms have to listen and like really be present for. Those are definitely my go-tos, and the people that I feel like understand me the best in my moments where I'm doubting myself, or, so I probably have, I hesitate. Vanessa, Heidi, Elizabeth, these go-to people that really understand my life. I could never be more grateful for those friendships. So
Amazing.
Yeah, that's the quick answer, I guess.
I love it. We need those friendships.
Yeah.
We need people like that. Yeah. Awesome. Well, Wendy, where can the listeners connect with you and learn more about your business and what's going on there and all that?
So I have my blog, The Optimist Journal, comes out every Sunday. And my website is theoptimistsjournal.com. That's optimist with an S at the end. And on Instagram, I'm at optimistsjourn. It's JOURN. And then trying to think what else I do. I'm a little bit on Facebook. Mostly I'm Instagram, and then my website. I have a subscription service for Everyday Optimism, where you get it's like $8 a month, and you get an optimistic message to your inbox every day with a daily action that kind of helps you build towards a more optimistic perspective, and a little bit of help in reframing issues that might come your way. So that's another thing I do, but I'm just always building, always looking for more connection and people that are just looking to tell their story. So thank you for having me here, and just come visit my website and check out my Instagram. And I love furthering these conversations. So thanks.
Yeah, of course. And listeners, those links will be in the show notes for this episode. Wendy, thank you for being a part of this. I feel a little lighter. I feel a little bit more optimistic, and I think that's has to be because of you. So thank you.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me. Thanks, Danae, for setting this up.
The awesome. Danae-verse comes through again.
Yeah, absolutely. So, all right. Awesome. Well, it was great talking with you.
And to you listeners, I'm here, you're here, we're here together on this wayward, overwhelming, awe-inspiring pale blue dot. We have each other. It's you, me, empathy. La, la, la. La, la.